I think that was fabulous. I did not make this woman cry, but I... But I think you can see, one of the things that I will tell you that is worth reading, I did, if I say so myself, I did do a profile of Denyse Schmidt for the Wall Street Journal. Every Saturday has a column about a famous person's creative process. And this is one of the ways that I know that the rest of the clueless people who do not quilt are coming around, is that the Wall Street Journal called me up, and for this column, they said, would you interview Denyse Schmidt? And I got very excited. I thought, they know who Denyse Schmidt is, and they know why, that what she does is of interest. So if you go and Google Denyse Schmidt, Wall Street Journal, there's a little bit more background about her process and her studio, and I found it fascinating. And do take some time later to look at these amazing quilts. She was still working on this, or the book hadn't come out yet, and I got to see some of these in her studio, and they're just really exquisite. So ask questions. Yes, Luke.
So some of us like to work with iconic images and various, things in our quilts, and we're curious if that Warhol image is copyrighted.
Oh, sorry, what? I missed the last part.
We're wondering if the Warhol image that we hear so much about is copyrighted, and I tried to find it, we couldn't find a copy.
Oh, good. Somebody posted one of the pictures from the French Vogue magazine that he took on my Facebook page.
I bet that didn't stay up long.
You know what? I don't really get on there, so you could, if you really want. And copyright, I have no idea. They're not my pictures, so, but.
Who else? Not about that, yes.
Denyse, you have a line of fabric for one of the big box stores. Can you talk about when you're designing fabric for that kind of, how is that design process different? How much control do you have over the quality of the product, the dyes used, the fabric used? At what point do you have to let go? How is that different than your other fabric designing?
It's actually not that much different in terms of the process. I do try to think about, I think the main difference when I design for the independents versus the big box is, I always put a collection out there, and the big box stores, just based on how they work, they'll pick and choose. So they might not take like the whole thing as a group as I have sort of envisioned it. And whereas for the independents, generally, they almost always, take the whole group. And I do think about color and pattern a little bit differently because it's a bigger audience, and they have very specific, we were just having this conversation, earlier today, and, I think the independents might be a little bit more closer to like where the fashion thing is, so I can, be a little bit more fashion forward with them, whereas with Joanne, with the independents or whatever, it's a little bit less real time. And I don't have anything to, like I do approve the fabric. Both companies, do really great quality, and the mills do all the, I don't really get into like the inks or anything, but I do approve the final strike offs.
There's a question over there.
Denyse, which of the quilts that you produced for your book provided you overall with the greatest challenge compared to what you traditionally have done?
Good question.
Well, they all had, their own challenge. Maybe the tobacco leaf, which is on the back side of that, the log cabiny red and cream one. It's, technically, it's like a pickle, pickle dish kind of pattern, and I don't usually get involved with anything that kind of rigorous. But probably actually the compass, so that my version is called My Compass, and you know, those are technically challenging patterns anyway, and I worked on this one a long time, you know, to figure out and probably because I went about it the wrong way, you know, just drawing it in Illustrator and like how many triangles go around, and because I wanted to find a way to instruct it in a way to me that seemed manageable, and you know, did it in quarters, and so some of those were probably really hard. The Hawaiian applique one also was pretty hard to figure out.
Yes?
Yeah, well, that's part of the process, isn't it? And it's amazing how we can forget, like the exact. There are all kinds of phases of the process. Right now I'm in the cleaning phase, which means I'm between big projects. And so I spend a few days sort of feeling rootless and, you know, like, I don't know what's going on because I don't have an immediate deadline in front of me, and then the next part of that is cleaning. So I go through all my old, you know, all the papers laying around, and then I go, oh, and I remember all these things that I wanted to do. But, you know, going down the wrong path, I think what's hard about having a business and, you know, sort of mixing artist, commerce, craft, whatever, is that there isn't always, you don't always feel like you have time to make mistakes, but it is really an important part of the process. It's the exploration, and it's very easy in the pace of things today to feel like there's no time for that. And I struggle with that a little bit, but you know, just saying it now is helpful to remember. You know, we all have to explore, and you have to go down those blind alleys sometimes to find the right or the right answer.
Well, I think one more question, and then we have a lot of great now everybody's going to raise their hands. We'll take a couple more questions, and then we need to move on because we're going to have a wonderful talk by Jennifer Tavarini. We've got some fabulous door prizes to give out. She is hanging around, so when we're finished with the formal part of the program, she's going to be over here signing books. You have lots of time to ask questions then on an individual basis, but yes, go ahead.
Well, I was approached by one company somebody who worked there sort of saw where things were headed, and so I did a presentation, and she unfortunately could not convince the powers that be that that's where it was going, and so then I had all this work that I had done, and you know, sort of like one of those blind alleys, and the only person that I had in my database that had anything to do with fabric also happened to live in Connecticut, Donna Wilder, and at the time she owned Free Spirit. So.
Oh, she wanted to know how she went about designing fabric. Did she just wake up one day and say, I want to do this, or did it sort of happen to her? I think there's a little bit of both there, that she was interested and she just happened to know somebody. She had a little bit of a blind alley, but absolutely. Did you have a question as well? No. Okay, back there. Oh, she wants to know what Denyse sleeps under. Okay.
No comment. I have one of my works special edition quilts called Tangerine Poppy on my bed.
Yes, what last question?
Between sort of bringing design to the masses and staying true to yourself, how do you decide
Did everybody hear the question? Would you
straddling commerce, and being true to myself, where, how do you decide, in terms of licensing, how do you decide what's the right relationship or not? And
I think he's also getting at, are there things you would say no to if somebody wanted to?
It's hard, there are some that are obvious, like designing fabric, and when I did a licensed quilt collection, which eventually, I did quilts for Pottery Barn and all of that. Those were hard decisions to make because here I was selling quilts that were thousands of dollars, and what happens when there's one in a catalog that's $300? And I worry about things for a long time, and I think really hard about them. It's very important to me to, one thing. This will be a long-winded answer, but the quilt license came about because Garnet Hill Catalog asked me to design a quilt, and they were very loosey-goosey. They didn't have a contract, and they're like, just write down whatever you want for terms, and we'll sign it. So I did that, and one of the things that I said was, I want to meet whoever manufactures the quilt in case I want to work with them on my own someday. And that was so long ago, and I never really expected it to happen. And they set up a meeting between myself and Sarita Honda, who manufactured the quilts in India, and her daughter, Suparna, and I was very nervous. And I met them in their hotel room, and I was chattering on, and Suparna said, "When is your birthday?"
When is your birthday?
When is March 23rd? She said, an Aries, I thought so. So I was like, I can work with that. So it's about relationships, and you're working with these people, and there's no right answer. I've been very, very lucky. And I like Blundstone, so yeah, maybe I would do Blundstone.
So I'm going to cut this off because we have so much other wonderful stuff, but thank you, Denyse. I really enjoyed that. That was awesome.